Once the circle is sealed, we cannot leave until the ritual is complete. The Surrender is a Shudder original, not a documentary, with a deep dive into the meaning behind the classic Cheap Trick song Surrender that came out in 1978. So those of you that were looking forward to finding out every bit of detail about that classic song Surrender, you may be left disappointed. But this film was written and directed by Julia Max in her feature film debut, and centers around a daughter named Megan, played by Colby Menifee, as well as her daughter Barbara, of They're Coming to Get You fame, played by Kate Burton. And, well, both of them are kind of going through a lot of stress and strife because the patriarch of the family, Robert, is dying. He is not doing all that well. He is on bed rest, hospice care, whatever you want to go with. He's getting meds. He is getting morphine, shrieking Davy Boy Smith 1998, 1999 noises. He's not doing all that well. And there's a strange relationship, however you want to put it, between Megan and Barbara. There are certain things going on in both of their lives. Megan is doing her best to be there for her dad. She sees her dad as just somebody that she cannot lose, but she knows the end is coming. Barbara really just wants her to be there. And there's a lot of building of the tension between these two, where basically it is obvious there are certain things they need to address. And they need to come together right now for the inevitability of Robert passing away. Once he does, they go to great lengths to find a way to bring him back. No, this is not Bring Her Back. Check out my review of that if you want. This is more of an independent version where basically the themes of psychological horror as well as grief of losing a family member, finding out more about that family member and other family members, and finding out, hey, maybe I was too hard on this person. Maybe this person wasn't as great as I thought they were. Everybody has flaws. What in the world's going on here? Were these people really all I propped them up to be? Am I the bad guy? Are we the bad guys? But am I the bad guy? What's actually going on? So that's a nice allegory as far as dealing with grief and overcoming that loss, and the lengths that people will go to address those particular levels of suffering. So in that sense, I do respect what Julia Max has done, and clearly this is a passion project. I will say that at the end of the movie, once the credits start rolling, it says for Susan. Obviously, this is a loving tribute. I don't know if that was her mother or somebody that raised her. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's none of my business, but I will say, obviously, there is some passion behind this, so I respect that. And Julia Max does have a way of laying out some scenes and building a little bit of atmosphere. There are certain elements to this movie that I like. I think that Colby and Kate do a pretty good job as the daughter and mother dynamic. And the one that plays Robert, he appears a few times once he does pass on, because otherwise we wouldn't have much of a horror movie if he didn't. And he delivers some decent lines here. Obviously, working through grief will be very tough, and this film will hit on different levels for those that have suffered loss, accepted loss, whatever. Even those that haven't, even those that are lucky that their loved ones are still here, some of this may hit for you. Your mileage may vary on this. I will, however, say that while this film has some effective moments, and there are a few body horror elements, it doesn't quite gel, I think, as much as it could have. I think this would have been an effective 30 to 35 minutes short. There are some unanswered questions in this 90-minute long movie. There are some good moments, but there are also some moments where it's like there are moments that are stretched out, then there are moments that are just glossed over. There are flashbacks about how the dad and the mother got along and didn't get along, which I thought added a little bit of levity to the story. I think the performances are pretty good. But in all honesty, it just ends up kind of being a fairly standard horror movie with some potential is just off in the middle distance. And it almost reaches it. It tries to. It's grasping at it. But it just can't quite get there. Bah! That being said, Julia Max shows potential as a filmmaker, and I want to see what else she can do, because there's something there. There's something in this movie. And I'm not saying remake it. Again, it may hit differently for people that, have dealt with loss. And there are a few effective moments in the second, even in the, first act and especially the third act. But overall, this didn't quite coagulate. It's just like taking, the sides of a magnet that don't go together. And it's just, there's about that much space. Yeah. With nasty little teeth. what an eccentric performance. It's on Shudder if you want to check it out, but I'm going to get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, Megan is talking to her mother. She's kind of dealing with some issues with college, as it were. In like scholarships. And she's been counting on some money. Well, it turns out that, any money that was promised, the dad said he would try to help. Barbara's like, no, you can't do that. Because he's dying, we need that money, or without insurance is covering. Well, that's not what I meant. We find out where the money went a little bit later on. Both have their reasons as to why they're dealing with grief the way they are and why they're wanting to do certain things the way they're doing them. I just don't think enough of it gels. We do get flashbacks about how Megan dealt with her dad. That, people die, but they never really leave. They're always with you. Like a fungus among us. And, even at one point, like during some of the earlier discussions, Barbara's like, you can't rely on us forever. There's more arguments. But Megan is trying to be there because it's revealed later on that she says, well, Mom, you pushed me away when I actually wanted to be there for Dad. You said he was fine. You kept pushing me away. You were controlling. That's why I left. And then he got sick and you wouldn't tell me just how bad off he was. And she had her dad on a pedestal. It turns out that maybe her dad wasn't actually the best guy. He kind of held the mother back and everything. Wanted the mother to be a stay-at-home mom. The mother wanted to go off and do her own thing or do some studies. And also, she thought that her dance class stuff was because the mother pulled her out. Nope, it was because the dad pulled her out. Because she needs to focus on her studies. She's 7 years old. We're getting all these flashbacks and stuff sprinkled in. But, meanwhile, Barbara takes a night off while Megan is watching. And she gives him a dose of morphine that might be a little bit too much. There is a nurse named Nikki, played by Mia Ellis, who I think has like one scene. I mean, she's fine. She does fine in her one scene, but I was like, alright. It's really just focused on these 3 particular characters. Well, there's another guy. We'll get to that. But they're essentially just, building this relationship and then breaking it down like, with a ball peen hammer. Bang, 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 bang. Because obviously once grief manifests, you will find out more about somebody than you thought, possible. Good, bad, and indifferent. So, the mother takes a night off, but it turns out the mother's actually been pulling her hair out and stuff like that. She even has a bit of a bald spot there. And is making certain things out of her hair, and even has her 2 wedding rings, and is setting all this stuff up. What in the world's going on? There's a bag of teeth and stuff that doesn't smell all that good underneath the bed when, Megan's trying to do her cleaning, wondering what the hell's going on. So all this stuff's building, and then the dad dies during the night while they're sleeping with him. Then they're going to reset his jaw, close his mouth and close his eyes. There's one funny line. I don't want to hurt him. And Barbara says, well, it's a little late for that. That's funny, and that's the kind of dark humor that you would have to deal with. But Mom gets on the phone and says, we need to preserve the body. Why do you need to preserve the body? To bring him back. What do you mean bring him back? Why are you doing this? She's on the phone with a friend named Deb that recommended this guy that basically has done these rituals and is going to bring the dad back. Apparently he's not very good at it, given what happens, but I digress. They clean up the house, they move furniture out of a room, they get this ritualistic stuff ready with the mom's hair and various heirlooms, but they have to also burn every single picture, every single other thing, the dad's belongings, all that. Even a picture that Megan cherishes of her dad, a way of dealing with grief. You got to let everything go, even if you want to hold on to this stuff. I mean, really, you should hold on to pictures. But in the sense of this horror movie, I guess you got to get rid of everything. So we have to burn everything. We're doing all this. The dad basically, as I said, took her out of the classes. And the mother essentially says people save the worst parts of themselves for their spouses, but also there were a lot of good times. Now, you have to question, by the way, why Barbara didn't leave this guy, because clearly he wasn't good for her. And nobody's perfect. No relationship's perfect. It doesn't sound like Robert was a good guy. I'm not saying Barbara was necessarily a saint, but these two clearly had issues. Barbara was controlling, that's why Megan took off. And then the dad wanted to pass in peace, but the mother insisted on him going through chemo, and basically he was suffering. And that's the thing. For those that are still watching, and there are some people I know that have had relatives, loved ones, whatever, that have gone through chemo. And it's very tough to watch somebody basically fade away and hopefully eventually come back. So I do want to warn you that that's a little bit of a line that's talked about. They don't show him going through chemo, but that's a little bit of a triggering warning right there. I had a grandma that went through a battle with breast cancer, and unfortunately, that's something that affected me because they only lived a few miles from me, and it was like I was like 9 years old when she passed. But this weird guy shows up that he's beard, crazy thing. It's almost like he's Van Helsing. If Van Helsing was like a homeless drifter. And he gets right near Megan and is sniffing her. Doing all this and everything. You know, he's not doing that, but he might as well have been, because he might as well have been making weird, creepy noises like he was, you know, some kind of guy at a bus station. Or the weird guy with the doll parts in Final Destination 2. Anyway, he checks out Barbara's bald spot and teeth, and everything's good. So basically, the dad is talking to Barbara during this, and, you know, like before the ritual starts. Talk to her a bit before the burning and all this stuff. Take care of your mother. Your mother's got to do this, because otherwise, you know, whatever. Now, that could be her compartmentalizing her grief. That could be her dad's spirit. It could be the entity that is basically messing with her. Not the entity from Mission Impossible 7 and 8. So, then once the circle is complete, or sealed, we cannot leave until the ritual is completed. And the idea is we have to do 3 surrenders. We have to do 1 to seal. We have to do another to go the other side. The 3rd surrender brings us home. Or actually, let's see. Surrender to go to the other side. Another to get the spirit back in the body. And then the 3rd brings us home. And you got to cry your tears onto a knife for part of this ritual. I think they were just making this up as they went along. I mean, and not explaining some of this stuff is fine, but I mean, whatever. I think the guy that was the weird, you know, witch doctor, ooh, ah, ding, dang, walla, walla, bing, bang, did the best he could. So Barbara, Barbara wanted to do things. Robert was controlling. We see certain things going on. I do like how the flashbacks were a lot brighter. The innocence of a child. That was nice. If that was the intention, that was a nice little bit of cinematography choice. So, gonna lose a finger. Allegory for suffering. How much would you go through to bring your people back? And then they start chanting. I just kept thinking, Imhotep, Imhotep. So, then suddenly things go tits up when the guy basically gets his jaw ripped off and pulled away. So now the dad's possessed. There's a bunch of bodies that are coming over, you know, and around and everything. And then there are weird glowing eyes off in distance, harkening back to something that she saw with glowing eyes in the mirror earlier, before all this stuff was going on. That wasn't a very effective jump scare, but whatever, it's fine. I think budgetary constraints. So, yeah, the weird guy's dead. The dad is possessed. They can't get the dad back in the goddamn, circle to do whatever. And nice body horror effects on the guy and everything. And they actually, they showed that in the beginning, and then they showed it here. So nice body horror effects. That was effectively well done. But the mother ends up getting taken away, because the mother's a goddamn idiot. She doesn't know how to get everybody home, because she went too far with this. So now, Megan is cutting her fingers out and all this kind of stuff, suffering, doing all this, trying to get home, and then she's able to peel the floor back and get into these flashback scenes where basically she can touch people's cheeks, they freeze, but then they go right back to the stuff. She can't change the past, she can't change any of this stuff, and it turns out the way she knew people is not actually how things worked out. And seeing the dad, you're stuck with me forever, mwah ha 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 ha. And she basically sees her possessed mother, says, I wasn't the best, but I did the best I could, and I always saw a better version of you both than there actually was, and I bid you goodbye. I don't think she said I bid you goodbye, but she might as well have. And then maybe she stayed in the realm. Maybe she went back to, her regular life with missing fingers. And then we cut to For Susan. Whoever that is, whoever that meant to the director, obviously meant a lot. If you're going to put a dedication like that, that is a surrender. C+, just above average. It's all right. Not exactly my favorite. I appreciate what Julie Maddox tried to do, and I look forward to her next projects. So, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.